Hello everyone, greetings for the day and welcome to our today's session on importance of artwork in preschooling. This is Divya here and you are watching Trend Brain in association with International Montessori Teacher Training Institute. Why is artwork so important for preschoolers? Or is it that important that we need to create lesson plans for children when we introduce that? These are some of the questions that most of my students who are taking the course of Diploma in Montessori keep asking me. Definitely yes. Why is that so? Because art plays an immense importance in every child's life. And when you're working with children of 2 to 6 years of age, it plays a crucial role in their overall development and learning. Now, let's see what are the important reasons and why we need to consider at the utmost priority. Here's the first advantage of it. It makes the child to be more creative and imaginative. Now, every time that the preschooler is allowed to do an art, don't you think that they would be able to express their creativity and imagination freely? That means it encourages them to think outside the box. The child is able to explore new ideas. Whatever comes down to their mind, they're able to explore it on that. Just take a look at this particular doodling art itself. Now, when we put children with different groups, that's when the creativity can also increase. Now, can we also use some of the tools to work on that? Definitely. Why not? The tools like you can begin your art just by using simple tools like chalk. Go with a white chalk, then add textures and colors into it. So you can go with the colored chalks. Let the child draw on any of the medium. It could be drawing on the floor, drawing on a blackboard or a green board, but try avoiding drawing anything on the walls. You need to give them a dedicated space. Now, what we fail over here is like when you enter into any toddler's home, you will, most of the times, you would find the child would have scribbled or drawn or written something on the walls. That's because the child was never introduced to a working space. Now, in Montessori, what we generally encourage children to do is like, if you would like to express any kind of creativity or imagination through your drawing or writing, we have to allocate a dedicated space for a child where they could exhibit all their talents. Okay. When we fail to do that, that is where the children think that they have the ability to work on different mediums and different canvases to explore their creativity. Once they have crossed over that scribbling, then is what you give them towards smudging and filling it in. So this is more like coloring tools. Just with the chalks also, you can ask them to have a defined amount of coloring and filling with the tools. From there, take a look at the transition. Now the child is able to express much more. They're able to draw characters. They're able to express whatever they had it in their mind. Now, don't you think now that the creativity and imagination is flowing through? This is something that we wanted. Now, having that onto paper is something that we can actually look into our classes. Now, this would be your first exercise. Using chalk as your medium, you can create any kind of an artwork and you would be submitting this. Okay. So I hope I have made myself clear. So this would be our first exercise at wherein we would be using chalk paper as the medium and you would submit any art. You can draw anything, you can color. If you want the child to be doing this, you can also do that, but try to work on the observation parameter on the usage of the colors, the way that the child is holding the chalk. That is also important, and the stroke formations. What is the end point or what is the end result that the child is actually working out on this? So keeping this as a first medium, now you will see how your art is getting transformed. Isn't it looking very good? So there's so much of a transformation from the scribble to a decent artwork. So we use chalk. So likewise, we can use different other mediums. You can use paint. You can again bring in paint with different kinds of mediums like finger painting or a brush painting, right? So use your techniques and you can also build up your second exercise. So your second exercise in your art is like, using the paint, we would be able to create some kind of an artwork and you would be having a submission through it. Now, what could be my other medium to express my creativity and imaginations, which most of us see in our preschools, is a clay dough. Okay, so when you give them handful of clay, which has got bright colors, that's where the child can also be much more creative. So let them make objects. You can teach them how to make shapes. Start with rolling. Start with taking a tiny portion of the clay and ask the child to roll the clay. Now, this itself gives them a lot of help on their muscular movement, on the fine regulation of the movement, which we very much put it towards the fine motor development of a child. And now see what a child can actually do and exhibit. So, isn't that amazing that we give it for the younger children? Beating and lacing is also more important because it also helps the child to work on the motor skills. See, all the time before the first development, we were working only towards creativity of the child, and we were also working on the imaginative capability of a child. Now, where is it getting helped for me? Indirectly, I am working to help the child for the fine motor development, isn't it? Now, if at all, if you want to support a little bit more, beads would be something which is really good. Let the child bead into the thread. So this is also going to give me a good amount of exercises, right? So this is also one particular thing. Now, every time we engage our children in these exercises, like it could be drawing or painting, cutting, pasting, this not only helps the child to work on developing their fine motor, but it also helps them to work on the muscles of the hands and fingers. Thereby, it will promote the hand and eye coordination. The dexterity of the child's hand skills will be really good, and the movement of the child is very much in control. That's the reason we call it as a fine motor control. So, anytime that the movement is in a controlled way, in a very limited portion, we call it as a fine motor development. So, art is also helping the child to work on the fine motor skills. So, we learned on 2 points. The first point was like on helping the child to be much more creative, helping the child to be imaginative. The second point is it helps us to work on a child's motor skills. Now, every time you give this, don't you think that the child starts to express their emotions and feelings? Now, here is what we are targeting on the emotional expression, something which is very important. Anytime that you give your art supplies, it could be paint, it could be crayons, chalk, or any other art materials. That medium itself will make the child to express their emotions and feelings. It helps them to communicate. And the entire process is quite non-verbal. Don't you think that is kind of a therapeutic exercise for a child? So that, if a child is very sad or frustrated or having any kind of very depressing emotions, don't you think that the child will be able to overcome all that experiences, and towards the end, the child is more joyful, the child is more happier, because this is something which is very, very essential. So during your initial days of your preschooling, if at all, if your child is put into a settling time, art is something which is very essential to bring on that emotional expression, to help the child settle very quickly. And this is going to be a joyful experience for a teacher and for a student also. So we are working on the emotional expression here. Once we are done with that, what about the cognitive development? And what do you mean by cognitive development? See, anytime you give them um, different materials, what is the first thing that the child is going to do? The child is going to observe what is it, and you guide them. You don't guide them. What is the next important thing that they go on to it? They start making choices, which one to pick. Every child has their favorable color. Don't you agree with that? They'll have the favorable choices, which one to go pick. So when you have a dedicated amount of different materials, what the child will always do is like he will have the ability to decision make his own or her own choices of what to pick and what not to pick. Once they begin picking all of that, what do? They have that awareness of how to construct it. They might know, they might not know, but the child will give their 100%. Now, this is thereby helping them to work on promoting their critical thinking ability. The child would overcome obstacles, but they would be able to resolve that. So that means we're also working on problem solving, right? The child has also got an experience working with different materials. Don't you think that they're also learning about how to engage these objects, how to compare and how to contrast between all of them? So that means I'm also working on spatial awareness for children. Thereby, I would also be working on my imaginative play. Now, all these things are going to help on the child's cognitive development. Now, this is really, really essential. So, you can give bundles of materials for children and they would be able to work on it. Now, this is something which I personally love doing this. Okay, so art, I feel it also provides our preschoolers an opportunity to enhance their communication skills. Now, you might be asking how? Because sometimes they do not express, they wouldn't be able to express their ideas and thoughts. But when they draw something, and when a teacher or a parent asks them to describe, that's when they start discussing about their ideas. That's when they start talking about the art. It might not look that way, but the child has a different perception itself about that art. Now, when you have this kind of a conversation that is being built, now these conversation, it could be between a child to child, or it could be between a child and an adult also. So when they start describing their artwork, that's when they discuss their ideas. And you need to be patient enough to listen to what the child is trying to say. And don't you think it is also going to promote the child's vocabulary development? Yes, when we do this exercise in our preschools, it is indirectly helping us to work on storytelling abilities. The child will be able to narrate a story through their pictures. Child will be able to narrate a story better when they draw something, when they paint something, right? Now, every time that each child brings in this, and when they're communicating with the other child, don't you think that the other child is also actively listening? So, all these things are working towards enhancing your child's language and communication. So, thereby, art provides an opportunity to every preschooler to enhance their language and communication skills. So, we can work in our conversations, we can help the child discuss their ideas. We got to be more patient to listening to the children. Thereby, the child's vocabulary is indirectly helped upon. So this is something which I personally love doing it, and spend a little time asking the child what it is. Even if it's a scribbling, you ask them why did they choose that color, why was that color favorite to them, what does that particular painting does mean, like, so when you have any theme paintings or when you give them some themes, sit for a while and observe what the child wants to communicate with each other. So this is going to be one of the exercise. Now what about the next one? It's about the sensory exploration. Now, we know that preschoolers love to engage and learn through their senses. And as preschool teachers, we got to create a medium, or we got to give them an opportunity wherein the child is also able to express all their, they're also able to engage through all their senses. And they're also able to explore different textures, colors, shapes, and different kinds of materials, right? So, this is where we ask them to interpret the world around them. Now, say for example, in this picture, it's just a bubble wrap, and the child can actually, feel the bubble wrap. They can actually dab onto it so that you can hear the pop sound. And using that as a medium, the child can create some patterns out of it, right? So this is going to be really amazing for a child to actually look into it. So likewise, you can use different kinds of textures also to make an artwork. Now, when you work on different mediums, when you give them an opportunity to explore more of them, indirectly, the child becomes much more confident. The child's self-esteem is also boosted up, right? Because the more you engage them in art activities, there is some kind of a experience that the child feels. So that is like a sense of accomplishment. Yes, I've completed this. So they take pride in their own creations. That boosts their self-confidence, that boosts their self-esteem as they realize their capabilities. They're like, I'm capable of doing anything and everything, and they see themselves as capable creators. Now, this is something that we want to see in every child. And our art exposes our children to various forms of artistic expressions. Now you can have themes wherein different cultures, different traditions we can actually paint. You can have your cultural appreciation days. You can ask children to work on different diversity paintings, and so many, right? So we are working on promoting on appreciation for diversity, and encouraging children to explore and respect different perspectives, values, and aesthetics of art. Okay, so when we incorporate all these 8 points, when we inculcate all these 8 points, right from, now if you recollect, right from helping the child to be more creative and imaginative, helping them to work on the fine motor development, making sure whatever mediums that you give, the child is able to emotionally express that joy. Since you're giving different kind of the mediums and materials, the child has got amazing cognitive development. And we're also working on language and communication, and the child is exploring through their sensory ability. So, thereby, which promotes the self confidence and the self esteem of a child. And we also encourage them to work on cultural appreciation, right? So, when we incorporate all these particular points into our preschool art education, thereby, we also bring an holistic approach to the learning. Now, this will indirectly support the child to work on developments of various skills, and it will promote the overall health in our preschoolers. Now, this is just the introduction to our art lesson, because from here on, we would be working on 56 art exercises in our training course. This is just the introduction, giving you an immense depth of what is the essence of artwork, why should we do, what is it required, and how children will be able to benefit out of it. Okay, so this was the introduction to our art lesson. So I will see you further in our next lesson, wherein we're going to be learning more in depth about each artwork. Now, before we get started with this, I would be sharing you some of the details about how do you purchase the album to work on your skills. And this purchase links are given only to the students of our institute, and you can go and purchase your art book over there, and you can start your art lessons along with me. And this is something that we would get started with our art lessons. Okay, so I'll see you soon in the next lesson. Until then, it's bye from Divya. Have a great learning, keep in touch, stay tuned. Bye bye.